Live and exclusive on Salon Media and One Nation FM.
Well, the plan in this month, I've got about, I think, 6 shows remaining, is to speak to 6 further people that I think, in their own way, are making the type of impact that effectively champions South Africa. And certainly one of them is Lesley Donna, the CEO of the Tshimologong Digital Innovation Precinct, right? So we thought, let's talk to her and find out how she does what she does. Lesley, good chatting to you, and thanks for your time. Good morning.
Inviting me.
Lesley, you can hear me now, right? Yeah, good morning.
Yes, can you hear me? Right?
I certainly can. Yeah, you can go ahead. So good talking to you, Lesley. Now, here's the question to you. I've introduced you as the head of the Tshimologong Digital Innovation Precinct, but how do you? It is such an open-ended question. How do you champion South
Africa? What a question. It's a difficult one. I think one of the things that is super important to me is actually listening to what people are saying, listening in for what the need is, and understanding what's meaningful to people when crafting a response to that. So it's taken on various forms for me. So one, as a process facilitator, moderating dialogues, and then people share what they need, and we craft solutions and come up with innovations to respond to that. It's also been through moderating, like I said, moderating dialogues, but then also facilitating the opening of hubs and innovation spaces. Because what I have come to see is quite often people may feel inspired to act, but they're often removed sometimes from the point of inspiration when they're out in the world acting on their own, and they often don't have the tools or resources. So for me, hubs and innovation spaces are those opportunities for collaboration in response to what the need is, and creating impact on the ground for me is impact. So Tshimologong Precinct specifically focuses on digital innovation. And of course, we're very keen to make sure that we are creating world-leading African digital entrepreneurs. So solving for local problems, but at the excellence of global standards and getting ready for export as well.
Okay, well, tell me more then about Tshimologong in terms of, give me practical examples of how that project is able to genuinely make a difference in South Africa, on the African continent.
Sure. So we define digital innovation as this intersection of hardware, software, and content with entrepreneurship at the heart of everything. So we apply digital innovation by doing digital skills development for unemployed youth, and internships are really our sweet spot. I'll come back to that in a moment. Entrepreneurship development, supporting entrepreneurs literally from ideation through startup and then scaling up the ventures. And then especially what's become important for us during lockdown and prior to lockdown is access to market. So we do a lot of work on access to market. And that could include Tshimologong leveraging its brand, going out and getting development work in hardware development, software development, or animation development, and then subcontracting our entrepreneurs and beneficiaries, our interns, to work on those projects and getting paid for it. So we have supported over 500 entrepreneurs since Tshimologong has started. In last year, in the last year and a half, in our animation academy itself, we've supported almost 100 animators. And some of them have gone on to, in fact, at the moment, we're taking a show to New York, to a festival in New York next month. But a few of the short films have done really well on the international film circuit. And then also it's also literally job placements, so training software developers, junior software developers, and placing them in corporate jobs.
And I suppose, the obvious thing to consider is, like, if Tshimologong doesn't exist, or did not exist, what would have happened to all these, these people, these ideas, and these projects that absolutely need help and a type of incubation to try and get them to grow? I mean, they would just fall by the wayside, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, people often know what it takes. They often lack just that. Sometimes it needs baseline support. Technical people have the technical skills, but often don't know how to commercialize it. So for me, it's often that difference of also being a service worker, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and being a freelancer versus developing your own intellectual property that you own and that's an asset long term. So Tshimologong is really encouraging our entrepreneurs. We have asset creators to develop their own IP. So people will be okay, but it's that next level that positions us on the global stage. That for me is really Tshimologong's contribution as well.
And therefore, to go back to the question, because I mean the question was really put to you about how do you do so, but how do you champion South Africa? But the reality is you do that with the projects that you're involved in, right? How therefore, in broad terms, right? How is the existence of Tshimologong, firstly, in your opinion, been able to be measured about the difference it's truly making to the country and the continent?
So we've been very meticulous at creating a database of all our impact. And in fact, our impact report just came out, so I'll share that with you. But for us, it's really about also creating an ecosystem. So we can't do it all on our own. That's absolutely impossible, but we're good at convening. So it's this relationship between public and private partnerships, both local and internationally. So we work with provincial government, with the city of Joburg, with some of our government agencies, but also corporates, and our entrepreneurs drive the agenda in that. So we're definitely not a one-man show, but we are seeing this real opportunity around using things like blended finance to make a difference. So quite often, corporates, for example, do not want to come in at development stage. As much as they speak about R&D, research and development, they want commercially ready ventures to work with. So we're really challenging corporate South Africa on that. But by us raising development finance, both local and international, we can take an unemployed youth from either being a self-taught either animator or developer and give them some formality and professionalism in the side of technology, and take them to that point where they can commercialize and be ready for more mainstream or corporate engagement.
And talking about the funding, I mean, I understand that there's a massive injection that Tshimologong has just received from France. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so in 2018, we signed an initial partnership with the French Development Bank and Institute of France to develop our audiovisual site, our digital content hub. And, so that looks at the areas of animation, gaming, virtual reality, digital arts, and music. And we've had huge success with that in 2018. So we've taken, like I say, 10 short animation films to market. This year we're going to support 50 professionals across Africa to take their projects internationally. So we link them to the top industry, people in the industry across Africa, and they get to go to a residence in France for 1 month, where they can showcase their work at festivals in the industry, meet distributors, meet publishers, meet people who can really make their projects thrive. So that's quite a huge success, and now they've added 7 million rand to that. So it takes their investment to just over 21 million. That has also, like I say, allowed us to leverage that finance to get local support. So the total investment or raise we've done for digital creative content is 45 million in the last 4 years.
Okay, and that's fantastic. And I mean, this brings me back to you because, of course, as you know, I actually saw the Tshimologong Precinct long before it even started, when Prof. Barry Dwolotsky invited me to Ashraf, come and spend some time with, let me tell you what we're going to do. And of course, subsequently, you joined them. Now, I'm saying, all those monies will only flow in your direction or the direction of the organization based upon the clear apparent strength of the leadership, right? And in this case, you're in charge there right now. What does it say about you and your own personal drive and mantra? I mean, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think I'm one of those people who, if you like, I'm fortunate to live my calling as I believe it to be, from a spiritual perspective or crisis perspective. So my work is very much led by my faith, which is super, super important to me. And full potential. And that plays out in various sort of ways. So when I engage with my team as well, I'm kind of like, how can Tshimologong be a platform for you to live your full potential? So for me, it's really like creating the space for people to thrive, supporting and mentoring where I can, and to a large extent, getting out of the way so they can shine. And a lot of our team I consider to be our alumni as well, team members who have left to do incredible things in the world. But they really have this passion and drive. And for me, I'm always looking for those like-minded people where if we have the same mission that we want to work together, those become my allies. They become my colleagues, they become my friends. And I think it's really for me about like, how do we create communities together where we collaborate well? And collaboration is not easy because a lot of us have our own personal agenda. And I think for me, it's been a practice about understanding ultimately are my habits or actions getting in the way of my ultimate mission? Because that happens as well.
Yeah, I think it's an important point. You know, talk to me about your faith, and I'll say that I'm going to ask you this very deliberately because you know yesterday I was on Paula Frey from the Frey Institute. I was on her Twitter space, and I was a guest there, and we were speaking about whether enough attention is paid to people's faiths, whatever they are. You know, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Rastafari, Jewish, and how that inspires them to do the work they do. So in that light, I think and I said, yes, we need to talk more about that. So tell me about how that link, about how your faith inspires you to do other great work.
Sure. So, and it may, sometimes it upsets people, but I often go into spaces where, this is my second job in my life. So I worked at Gibbs & Gibbs as a startup. I'm working at Tshimologong Precinct as a startup. Beyond that, I've been an entrepreneur. But because I go either as an entrepreneur, I didn't go into spaces treating my client as though they're God. I have a God. You're not my God. I'm here to serve and support you. But putting people on a pedestal has never been an issue for me. So we also have to quickly go beyond the fluff and get to what is the issue at play here. And I think for me, leaders, as soon as we have ego coming in the way, we create blockage of engagement. So with some of my bosses in the past, and even chairman, somebody would be shocked because I'm nodding them on whistle, but they also appreciate it. So we could have lively debate because it's always about the ultimate outcome. Now, if I don't think that would have been my approach to work if it wasn't for my faith. I'm here for a mission, a sense of calling, and I see people I refer to as collaborators in that.
I think that's a very good point. Let me lastly leave you with this. When we talk about Champion, it's driven by, this platform is also driven by the Champion South Africa project that I head up. And the word champion is so fascinating because champion is a verb, which is an action where you champion a cause. But when you deliver on that, then you're this champion in your own right. And I'm very comfortable, suggesting that you certainly fall into both categories, right? But therefore, people watching us, people listening right now, what can you tell them? Because you spoke about being convening, and I want to convene conversations around getting people switched on to champion thinking. What can you tell them so that will encourage them to pick up causes and to be a champion in their own spaces?
I think, quite often people don't step up because they think somebody else is the expert. And that's often false. Like, you, an expert of your context, what you see is legitimate. So I think like that, again, getting over imposter syndrome to act. Like, imposter syndrome hardly ever goes away. It goes, like, you need to act despite the fear. But we are living in a time where there's so much newness, so much emerging. COVID has taught us that none of us have been experts. It's only been around for 2-3 years now, the pandemic. So a lot of stuff is new. So for me, that should give you permission to act, even if you're not sure or certain about the outcome. But don't wait for an invitation. Step up and you'll figure it out. Like, quite often in the action, you attract other people to act with you.
Well, I think you're right. If there's nothing else they've heard, just remember that. Step up. Lesley Donna Williams, thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing your own story. And the hope is that your story as this champion in your own space will inspire other people to be just that. So appreciate your time, Lesley. Thanks for your time. Lesley is the CEO of the Tshimologong Digital Innovation Precinct, part of the whole Wits University precinct. So check it out in Braamfontein. Perhaps you may want to connect with them. They're talking about connection. Sentio is an ethically based asset manager that is focused on delivering superior risk-adjusted returns for their clients, regardless of market good conditions. Now, for more info on their Sharia investment products, visit their website, which is sentiocapital.com, so sentio-capital.com, and start saving towards your investment goals today. Sentio Capital Management, invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider. We'll talk about the Queen Street Mosque in Pretoria right after this.